Hello everyone. There is a slogan that I always post on Facebook. Love life and life will love you back. In today's video, I will talk more details about this and what does it mean in my daily life. This morning, as I sat quietly in my garden with a warm cup of tea in my hands, I watched the sunlight slowly make its way across the yard. It touched the petals of my epiphyllum one by one, as if God Himself were gently waking each flower after a peaceful night's sleep. The air was cool. A hummingbird hovered for a few seconds over a blossom before disappearing into the blue sky. Somewhere nearby, a mockingbird sang its morning song, not because anyone was listening, but simply because singing is what birds do. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. At this stage of my life, I no longer rush through mornings. I have learned that life whispers its greatest lessons, and only those who slow down can hear them. Looking around my garden, I realize that these flowers have quietly become my teachers. Every spring, they bloom with astonishing beauty. They never ask whether someone will admire them. They never compare themselves with the flowers next to them. They simply bloom because that is what God created them to do. Then, after their magnificent display, the blossom gently fall to the ground. There is no sadness, no complaint, no resistance. The plant simply begins preparing for another season. Nature never worries about tomorrow, it simply trusts. As I watch the breeze move through the leaves, my thoughts wander to my grandchildren. Sometimes they come running into this garden, their little feet racing across the grass, their laughter filling every corner of the yard. They stop to look at the butterfly as though it were the most extraordinary creature in the world. They become fascinated by a ladybug crawling across a leaf or a tiny snail making its slow journey after the rain. It amazes me is not what they see, it's how they see. To a child, nothing is ordinary. Everything is a miracle waiting to be discovered. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, many of us lose that gift. We become so busy earning a living that we forget how to live. We spend years chasing a bigger house while forgetting to enjoy the home we already have. We work hard to buy a better car, yet we no longer notice a beautiful sunset during the drive. We dream of taking vacations in distant countries while overlooking a little paradise quietly growing in our own backyard. Life is not becoming less beautiful. We have simply stopped paying attention. My garden has taught me something else. There were years when I planted flowers that never bloomed. Some plants wither despite all my efforts. Others surprised me by blooming long after I had nearly given up on them. Life is very much the same. Some prayers are answered quickly, others seem to disappear into silence. But silence does not mean God has forgotten. Every gardener understands that roots grow long before flowers appear. Just because we cannot see what is happening beneath the soil does not mean nothing is happening. Perhaps God works in our lives the same way. The most important growth is often invisible. Patience is quietly stretching our roots. Faith is strengthening our branches. Love is preparing us to bloom in the right season. When my grandchildren visit, they often pick up little stones, falling leaves, feathers, or bugs to adorn. These things seem ordinary. To children, they are treasures. I sometimes wonder if heaven looks at us the same way. God has already scattered countless treasures along our path. A kind word from a stranger, a phone call from an old friend, a smell of fresh rain, a flower blooming unexpectedly, the laughter of family gather around the dinner table. Yet we walk past them because we are looking for something bigger. Perhaps abundance have never been about having more. Perhaps abundance begins when we finally recognize how much we already have. We have lived long enough to know that life is never perfect. There have been days filled with tears. There have been seasons with uncertainty. There have been moments when I wonder how tomorrow would come. Yet looking back now, I see that God never abandoned me. Sometimes He carried me without me realizing it. Sometimes He answered my prayers in the way I did not understand until years later. Sometimes His greatest blessings arrive wearing the clothes of disappointment. Now, when I sit in the garden, I no longer ask God only to give me more. Instead, I ask Him to help me see more, to notice more, to appreciate more, because I have discovered a quiet truth that no school can teach and no amount of money can buy. The more grateful my heart becomes, the richer my life feels. Not because my possessions have multiplied, but because my awareness has. Love begins with appreciation. When you appreciate your family, they become more precious. When you appreciate your health, you take better care of it. When you appreciate your work, it gains new meaning. When you appreciate an ordinary day, it quietly becomes extraordinary. Perhaps that is my gratitude seems to invite even more blessings. It is as though God gently smiles and says, "She has cared well for what I have already given her. I can trust her with more." As the afternoon sun begins to settle behind the trees, I look once more across my little garden. The flowers are still blooming, the birds are still singing, the wind is still dancing through the leaves. Life has been offering me these gifts every single day. The only thing that changed was that I finally learned to notice them. And perhaps that is the secret I wish to leave for my children, my grandchildren, and anyone who may one day read these words. Do not wait for life to become perfect before you decide to love it. Love it now. Love the ordinary mornings. Love the quiet afternoons. Love the people sitting around your table. Love the wrinkles that remind you of laughter. Love the season that continue to change. Love the journey that God has written specially for you. For I have learned sitting quiet in my little garden that life has gentle way of returning whatever we offer it. If we greet each day with gratitude, life somehow becomes more generous. If we care for what God has already placed in our hands, He often entrusts us with even greater gifts. And If we truly learn to love life, not because it is easy, but because it is sacred, then in its own quiet and mysterious way, life will always find a way to love us back. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy it and start loving life, and life will love you back. Please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.